I was scrolling through my phone the other day, way back in my messages, and I realized I have these text threads that have been completely silent for, I don't know, 2, maybe 3 years.
Oh yeah, the digital graveyard.
Right. And for most people, those threads are just dead. You don't just text someone out of the blue after 3 years of silence. It feels super weird.
It feels like you're intruding. For most of us, anyway.
Exactly. But then there's that one person in your life, you probably know exactly who I'm talking about, the one where you can send a message after 3 years of absolute radio silence, and they reply as if you just walked out of the room 5 minutes ago.
Right. No awkwardness. No, hey, sorry, I've been so busy.
None of that. Just immediate reconnection.
It's like time didn't even pass for them. They're basically the time travelers of friendship.
Huh? Time travelers. That is the perfect way to put it. And for the longest time, I just thought these people were exceptionally nice. Or maybe they just had a lot of free time. But we have a stack of documents in front of us today for this deep dive that suggests there is actually a highly sophisticated psychological architecture behind that exact behavior.
Oh, it is definitely not just them being nice. It is a highly complex operating system. Today, we're digging into the Max Energy ME80 personality system, which is this really fascinating framework that maps human energy flows. And specifically, we are going to decode a unique profile they call the WFU.
Which, WFU sounds a bit like a droid from Star Wars.
It does.
But the report actually gives it a much more poetic name. They call it the tender holder.
The tender holder. I love that. It sounds soft, doesn't it? Almost fragile in a way.
Yeah, it sounds like someone holding a little baby bird or something.
Right. But if there's one thing I really want to get across to you as you're listening to this deep dive, it's that tender does not mean weak here. This profile is actually built on a chassis of just incredible resilience. We're going to break down the official Max Energy ME80 personality assessment report to figure out exactly how these people work.
We're going to cover their core philosophy, their energy mechanics.
Yeah, specifically this thing called the energy matrix.
Right. And even the best career paths for them.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to figure out what makes the WAU tick. Because if you are one, you probably feel pretty misunderstood most of the time.
Oh, definitely.
And if you know one, you might honestly be taking them for granted. So let's start right at the top, the hero section of this assessment report. There is a core declaration here that really sets the stage. It reads, and I'm quoting here, holds on with tenderness when others are ready to let go.
That single line is the key to their entire map. In the ME80 system, the WAFU is classified as an attachment personality.
Now, attachment. That usually gets a pretty bad rap in modern pop psychology, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're always taught to be independent. No attachments,
Yeah.
no suffering.
Right. In our culture today, attachment usually implies someone is clingy or needy. But the report defines it really differently here. It is talking about emotional steadfastness. Think about how transactional most of our world is right now. You buy a coffee, you say thanks, you leave. You date someone, it doesn't work out perfectly on the first try. You swipe left and they're gone.
Yeah, it's all immediate exchange. If the ROI isn't there, we just cut the cord.
Exactly. But the tender holder operates on a completely different timeline. They do not view relationships as transactions. They view connection as, and I really love this exact phrase from the source, an existence worthy of continuation.
An existence worthy of continuation. Wow, that is heavy. It sounds almost sacred.
To them, it is. It means even if you move to London or you get married and get super busy or you just naturally drift away, to the tender holder, your file is never deleted. They are internally preserving space for you.
So I'll have completely forgotten about them because I'm distracted by, I don't know, my shiny new job or whatever. They are essentially keeping a candle in the window for me.
Metaphorically, yeah. They absolutely are. And that brings us directly to their control mechanism, because every personality type in the ME80 system has a way they try to control their reality so they can feel safe.
Right, like for some types, control is about dominating the room.
Or having all the data on a spreadsheet.
Okay, so what gives the WAVU a sense of control?
For them, control comes from maintenance. They feel safe when they are the keepers of continuity. The report uses this concept called proper placement.
Proper placement. That sounds a bit like feng shui, or organizing your closet.
It is similar, but for people, for memories. The tender holder believes that people shouldn't just be discarded because the context changes. If we were best friends in college, you have a permanent place in my internal architecture. I can't just throw you out because we're 40 now and live in different states. A WAVU feels this deep, almost physical need to keep that place dusted and preserved.
Okay, but playing devil's advocate here. That sounds incredibly exhausting. If you never clear out your emotional cache, doesn't your hard drive just get completely full?
That is the exact right question.
Yeah.
And it segues us perfectly into the physics of this personality. To understand how they don't just collapse under all that emotional weight, we have to look at the energy matrix. This is where the ME80 system gets a bit technical.
The schematics of the soul.
Precisely. The report describes their energy structure as having marked emotional centripetality.
Centripetality. Okay, high school physics flashback here. That is the force that pulls things inward toward the center of rotation, right? As opposed to centrifugal, which flings things outward.
You nailed it. Most extroverts or hunter-type personalities have centrifugal energy. They explode outward, they actively change their environment, they project onto people. But the tender holder creates a gravity well. They pull energy in.
So they are absorbing rather than projecting.
Yes. And here's the paradox that confuses so many people. You look at a WAFU and you see someone soft, someone who is always listening, always absorbing. You just assume they are pure emotion, maybe even a bit chaotic or soft-headed.
Sure, because they're so agreeable.
Right. But the source material says something really surprising here. It says that deep down, they possess a deep strategic grounding in rationality.
Wait, so the tender holder is actually a strategist.
They are a rational computer wrapped in a warm blanket.
Huh. Okay, we need to unpack that, because normally we think of emotional and rational as complete opposites. How can they be both at the same time?
Well, the ME80 system breaks human processing down into 3 specific layers: IP, IQ, and EQ. And the way these stack up for the WAFU is super unique. Let's start with the bottom layer, the IP, or inner value layer.
The report calls this risk perception activation, right?
Right. This is their reptilian brain, their baseline radar. It is constantly scanning the environment. But it is not scanning for physical threats like a tiger in the bushes. It is scanning for emotional risk. Specifically, the risk of a broken bond or a loss of connection.
Oh, I see. So their baseline state isn't, is there danger? It's, is my friend pulling away or is my team falling apart?
Exactly. They are hyper-vigilant about the health of their connections. That is the risk perception at the IP layer. Now, if you move up one level to the IQ layer, that's the emotional activation layer, this is where that rationality actually lives. The report calls this structure and principle judgment.
Structure and principle. That sounds like a judge
Yeah.
or an architect. It doesn't sound very tender at all.
And this is the surprising part. Internally, the WAFU has a very rigid, logical blueprint of how relationships should work. They have strict rules, friends support each other, partners don't lie, loyalty matters. They are constantly judging the situation based on logic and principle. They know, logically, when things are off.
So they see their friend pulling away, which the IP layer warns them about, and then they judge it as this behavior violates the principle of friendship at the IQ layer.
Yes, so they know you are wrong. But, and this is the massive, but then we hit the top layer, the EQ, or decision calculation layer. This is the output. This is what they actually do in the real world. And for the WAFU, this layer is defined as emotional expression and release.
So the output just overrides the logic entirely.
Almost always. The logic at the IQ layer says, this person is treating you terribly, this violates the structure, you should leave. But the decision layer, the EQ, says, but if I leave, I break the bond, and my core purpose is expression through connection. So they stay, they forgive, they absorb the hit.
Wow, that explains so much. I think everyone listening knows someone like this, someone who is incredibly smart, very logical in their career. Maybe they're a lawyer or CFO, but they stay in a friendship or a romantic relationship that makes zero sense on paper. And you just want to shake them and say, you know better than this.
And the tragedy or the beauty, depending on how you look at it, is that they do know better. Their IQ layer knows exactly what is happening. But their EQ layer, their final decision mechanism, prioritizes the maintenance of the bond over that cold logic.
That is a fascinating conflict to have running in your head 24/7. It sounds like a constant negotiation between a judge and a poet, and the poet just keeps winning.
That is a brilliant way to phrase it. And that internal negotiation leads directly to the manifestation layer, which is what the rest of us actually see on the outside. The report uses 3 very specific verbs to describe how this energy shows up in real life: carrying, absorbing, integrating.
Those are heavy words. Carrying, absorbing.
They are. Think back to the harbor analogy. A harbor doesn't fight the ocean. It accepts the ships. It absorbs the waves. It integrates whatever cargo comes into port. The WAFU is a harbor. They carry the emotional weight so that others don't have to.
Which makes them just incredible people to be around. You always feel lighter after talking to them because they're literally carrying your load.
Exactly. I gotcha is the ultimate motto of the manifestation layer here.
But let's look at the inner characteristics mentioned in the deep dive report. Because how do they actually maintain these bonds over years and years? It can't just be by sitting there passively like a literal harbor.
No, it is highly active work. The report calls this deep affection maintenance, and it uses this mechanical term that I just love. It says they're highly skilled at retightening loosening relationships.
Retightening. I really like that visual. It's like they walk around with an emotional screwdriver in their back pocket.
Basically, you haven't spoken to them in 6 months, the relationship is getting loose, the screw is wobbling. So the WAFU sends a text. Hey, I saw this book at a cafe and it reminded me of that trip we took. Twist. The screw is tight again. They use shared memories, warm greetings, and detailed care to bridge those silent gaps.
It's the remembered factor. I actually have a wafy friend who remembers the name of the golden retriever I had when I was 12. And when they casually mention it, I just feel so profoundly seen.
That is the magic. To them, those tiny details are the bricks of the relationship. If they throw away the detail, the wall falls down.
Okay, so they are the glue. They hold everything together. But let's go back to the silt in the harbor. There absolutely has to be a cost to this emotional centripetality. You can't just pull everyone else's heaviness inward forever without consequences.
No, you can't. And this brings us to the shadow blind spot. Every personality strength has a shadow. The report identifies the WAFU's shadow as difficulty separating and excessive sentimentality.
Excessive sentimentality. That sounds a bit like emotional hoarding.
It is hoarding, but of emotions and past versions of people. Because their IP layer is so terrified of the risk of loss, they severely struggle to cut their losses, even when a relationship becomes highly toxic or just incredibly unbalanced.
So they are over-yielding. They just give in way too much.
Yes. They feel this immense sense of responsibility to the history of the relationship rather than the reality of it today. And there is a line in the report here that I honestly found genuinely heartbreaking. It says they tend to use past beauty to dissolve present discomfort.
Oh, man. That hit me right in the chest. Use past beauty to dissolve present discomfort. Can you explain what that actually looks like in practice?
Yeah. Imagine you are in a partnership where you are being ignored or mistreated today, right now. A purely rational person looks at today's data and leaves. The tenderholder looks at today, feels the pain, but then they pull up a file from 5 years ago, that amazing vacation you took, or that one time you were so incredibly kind when they were sick, and they use that beautiful memory to literally dissolve the pain of today.
Wow. So they are editing the movie in real time to make it a rom-com instead of the drama it actually is.
Precisely. They are living in a highlight reel to justify staying in a really bad theater. And this leads to massive burnout, loss of personal boundaries, and what the report specifically calls prolonged emotional depletion. Because they are constantly absorbing the negativity, but they don't have a mechanism to filter it back out.
Phew. If you are listening to this right now and you feel a little called out, take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
It is a mechanism, right? Not a life sentence.
Absolutely. Awareness is always the first step. Recognizing that proper placement, their core philosophy we talked about, sometimes means placing someone firmly in the past, not the present.
Let's pivot slightly to how this shows up socially, because it's not all heavy and tragic.
Yeah.
What is a waveview actually like at, say, a networking event or a cocktail party?
Well, they definitely aren't the ones working the room. They aren't trying to collect 50 business cards. The report says they exhibit emotional adhesion. They highly prefer deep life intersection over shallow socializing.
So they're the ones trapped in the corner of the kitchen talking to one person for 3 straight hours.
Trapped implies they want to escape. They want to be in that corner. They want to know your deepest fears, your dreams, what your childhood was like. They crave that deep life intersection. They have this incredible patience for listening.
And for the person talking to them, that must feel...
It feels like absolute safety. The report calls it the being deeply remembered sense of safety. In a world where everyone is kind of looking over your shoulder to see if someone more important just walked in, the WAFU is looking right at you.
But the report mentions a pretty big cost here, too, regarding loneliness, doesn't it?
Yes. Because they attach so deeply to people, they bear greater loneliness in relationship shifts. If a colleague quits, everyone else just says, hey, good luck, and grabs a donut in the break room. The WAFU feels a literal tear in the fabric of their daily life. They grieve shifts that other people just shrug off completely.
That brings us perfectly to the workplace. You might think, hearing all this talk about tenderness and emotional absorption, that a WAFU would just get eaten alive in the corporate world. But the assessment actually argues they are a secret weapon.
A massive secret weapon. The report labels them the trust guardian of an organization.
Which sounds like a video game class, but I assume it pays much better.
In the long run, it pays off immensely. Look, your hunter types, your aggressive sales folks, they are great at getting the signature on the contract today. But the WAU excels at converting short-term business interactions into stable long-term partnerships.
Ah, so they are the farmers.
They are the farmers. They're the ones who remember that the client's kid is sick. They're the ones who check in when there's absolutely nothing to sell. And that is what actually builds bulletproof trust over years.
And what about internally, like when the company is going through a massive crisis?
That is where they shine as stabilizers. When a merger happens or layoffs are looming, the office atmosphere gets incredibly toxic. Panic spreads. The WAFU absorbs that panic. They maintain organizational warmth and cooperation resilience. They protect the emotional assets of the entire team.
So while everyone else is freaking out and updating their resumes, the tenderholder is walking around making sure people are okay, keeping the whole culture from imploding.
Exactly. They actively prevent the team from turning on each other under pressure.
Okay, so if I am a WFU, or I'm managing one right now, where should they be placed for maximum impact? What are the recommended professional fields in the report?
4 key areas really stood out in the ME80 analysis. First is major account maintenance.
Account management. So again, not the aggressive hunting, but the nurturing.
Right. Keeping the VIP clients happy for 10 straight years. Second is private domain operations. This is a bit of a fancy term for things like community management or membership clubs. Anywhere you need to nurture a specific group of people over a long period of time.
They're the professional glue of the group chat.
Third is organization building, specifically in human resources, but not payroll or cold compliance. We are talking HRBP, HR business partner roles. The report calls it organizational culture care, being the actual heart of the company.
And the fourth field?
Mentoring support. So education, consulting, deep coaching. Roles that require immense patience to sit with someone through a frustrating learning curve. Because remember, the WAFU has high tolerance and absorption. They don't get frustrated when the student doesn't get it the first time or the 5th time.
They just hold the space until the student gets there.
Precisely. They have the emotional stamina for someone else's growth.
It is really a beautiful profile when you step back and look at the whole picture. It's this incredible mix of a highly rational mind and a very tender heart, operating by holding on in a world that just loves to let go.
It really is. And I honestly think we need them now more than ever. We have more than enough disruptors in the world. We need more stabilizers.
As we wrap this deep dive up, is there a final golden nugget from the source material? Something for our tender holders out there, or the people who love them, to take away and mull over?
There is. The report concludes with this really profound thought. It says, when relationships are maintained, trust continues to grow. The tenderholder's power lies not in letting go, but in staying, allowing connection to slowly extend through time.
Allowing connection to slowly extend through time. That is powerful stuff. We are told so often to move on, to level up, to cut people out. It is really nice to hear a data-backed defense of staying.
Staying is an active choice, and it is a deeply courageous one.
Now, we have covered a lot of ground today, but the Max Energy ME80 system is massive. We've really just peeled back one layer of one specific profile.
That's right. Everything we discussed today, the IP, IQ, EQ layers, the energy matrix, that all comes directly from the official assessment report. It is a very deep system that helps you understand the actual architecture behind why you do what you do.
So if you were listening to this and thinking, wow, that is exactly me, or that completely explains why my partner still has high school letters in a shoebox under the bed, you might really want to dig deeper into this.
You can find the full system at www.maxenergylife.com. It is definitely worth checking out to see your own unique code.
And there are online communities discussing all of this too. You can search Facebook for Max Energy.
That's right, Max Energy Gather Energy Personality Studies. Or you can also search Metatenergy, Asana.
We will make sure to drop those terms and the website link in the show notes so you don't have to try and type all that out while you're commuting. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of the tenderholder. This whole conversation is honestly maybe you want to go text a few old friends.
Same here. Go retighten some of those screws.
We will catch you on the next deep dive.